So today's episode of Hormones on the Blink, we'll be talking about how to tell if you are in perimenopause and how you get the right help from the GP. Hello and welcome to this edition of Hormones on the Blink podcast.
Hi, welcome back for another episode. So today we're going to be talking all about perimenopause.
What to look out for.
Yeah, and how to get the help that you need.
So last episode we talked about some of those symptoms of perimenopause, but because there's quite a list and we can't always remember all of them, we're going to share them with you on the screen. So you're going to be able to see them running along the bottom. So things like itchy skin, brain fog, achy joints, headaches, migraines.
But Sophie, there's so many different symptoms for perimenopause. What should people look out for? Because it's very easy, isn't it? You know, to go to the doctors and they could pick up, you know, if you just went in and said that you have got joint pain and a headache, what is it that tells perimenopause apart?
Yeah. And that's the problem, isn't it, right? That's why we've got so many people going to the doctors and they get sent for one test here and one test there and then don't find out later what was really going on. So there's a great survey that was done. So I thought we could share some of that information. So It was done by Forth with Life and they questioned a total of 6,806 women. Wow. And they asked them about the perimenopausal symptoms they'd experienced. So just under 2,000 of those were under the age of 40 and almost 5,000 were over the age of 40. So in that perimenopausal age bracket.
Yeah.
So they asked them what were their first symptoms that they noticed. So mood changes, poor sleep and digestive issues. So they were on the top 3 symptoms that people said they noticed first. It's really interesting, isn't it?
That is really interesting because it's not what you would link with perimenopause as we've been taught to think about it, you know?
Absolutely. We think periods stopping, periods changing. We don't necessarily think
mood swings, you know, all of the things that our society has taught us.
Yes, yeah. And we actually did a survey. We put it out to me on the Hormones on the Blink kind of social media page.
Yeah. And
we asked people, what were the first things that showed up for you? Were they physical symptoms or were they mental symptoms? Okay. So 80% said it was mental symptoms that came up for them first.
Right, okay.
Only 20% said physical symptoms.
Wow.
Which is just really shows you, doesn't it?
And so those were people not feeling any joy, low mood swings, anxiety, paranoia and rage.
That's it. So they were the words that they used to say, this is how I noticed I was feeling.
Wow.
But interestingly, there's also been research done about women going to the GP and asking for help.
Okay.
And being offered antidepressants, right? Because we know that's really common.
Yeah.
And we could kind of think, well, if they've got mental symptoms, well, maybe antidepressants are the right thing. Okay, so if they've got anxiety, they've got depression.
Yeah.
But interestingly, some 80% of those women said they felt that antidepressants were inappropriate treatment for the symptoms that they were suffering.
Really?
Which tells you, doesn't it, that they know themselves that this isn't, it might feel like anxiety, but it's not like an anxiety they've had before. Or if it is, it might be a worsening anxiety. They notice that perhaps the rage that they feel, they haven't experienced it before. And therefore they know within themselves, actually, these antidepressants, that's not the way to go with this.
There is a difference. Although there's an overlap, there is a difference when it comes to perimenopause, hormone challenges and mental health. And we're going to touch on that a bit later as well, aren't we? And go into that a little bit more. Yeah. So you mentioned on our last episode that it is very often lowering levels of progesterone that can affect our mood and acts as a natural sedative, which makes sense, but the digestive issues, where does that come from?
But yeah, I know, that's fascinating, right? Because who's talking about that?
I feel like digestive issues are just, you can have that at any point because it's all to do with the food that we eat, is it not?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. But also, so we know we've got the gut microbiome, right?
Yeah.
But we've got in the gut, we've got part of that, it's called the estrogen, okay?
Okay.
And that is directly works with estrogen and how our body metabolizes it.
Right.
So when our hormone levels change, our gut microbiome and how that works can change. So people suddenly start finding the foods they ate before, they can't eat them anymore. They're getting bloated after they're eating certain foods. They might be getting kind of really constipated, and that's causing problems. So, yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but those things are all related. And that's when you speak to lots of women, that's what they say. Well, I'm getting really bloated. I can't eat bread anymore. I can't eat dairy anymore.
So let's say someone listening to this was having this penny dropping moment. What do they do next? Like, what is the plan for them?
Yeah, great question. So the key here is if you are over the age of 45, the NICE guidelines are what the doctors use to refer back to.
Yeah.
So they say that they go on symptoms alone. So if you go to the GP and you say to them, well, I've got these symptoms, achy joints, and you list them all out, they should go by symptoms alone and treat you accordingly for that. So whether that's HRT you want to look at or whether it's some kind of alternative support.
And is it not very important when it comes to your GP appointment is to almost go into your GP appointment with the facts, research what it is that you think you're struggling with, research it, talk to people about it. You almost have to build up a case, don't you, to go into your GP and say, this is what I've looked at, this is what I think I'm struggling with, and almost record a diary. For some of the other hormonal challenges, such as PMDD, it is looking at your symptoms and tracking them. I think tracking is key. Would you not agree, Soph?
Absolutely. So I use 2 apps. I've got the Flow app and I've got the Balance app. And the Flow app's great because you can track your cycle, so you can see how regular they are or how irregular they are. Whereas the Balance app, you can put on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, how bad's my brain fog today? How bad are my migraines today? Then you print it out and you go to the GP with that. So exactly what you're saying there, you want to build a case, you've got 10 minutes in that doctor's appointment. Yeah. So we've got a free guide to getting the best out of a GP appointment on the website. So please download that. And then you want to kind of tick off those symptoms. And as you've mentioned, you go in there armed with, this is what my cycles have looked like. They might be regular, they might be irregular. Yeah. Here are my recordings from my Balance app or my diary, if that's easier. And you're giving them the whole picture.
You are treating the doctor's surgery like a courtroom, and this is your court case, and you're going to win it and get the answers.
Exactly that. So let's talk about, so if you are under the age of 45, right, because this is the tricky part. If you're under the age of 45, which, let's face it, a lot of us perimenopausal women are, we're in late 30s, early 40s, you'll go to the GP and they might get you to do a blood test. So they'll send you for a follicle stimulating hormone test. Now that's to see whether you are right at the end of menopause. If you're not right at the end of menopause, if you're in perimenopause, that test is kind of pointless. Right. But it picks up people that have gone through early menopause. So you have to have 2 of those tests around about the same time of the month. And depending on those levels, because as we get close to menopause, those follicle stimulating hormones, we're trying to release an egg, right? Yeah. So those levels get higher. Okay. But if you go with lower, you go and you get lower results, then they'll say, well, no, I'm afraid you're not going through menopause.
But actually, there's other factors that feed into that, and that's not necessarily the right way to go about it.
No, exactly that. So that's where perhaps trying a different doctor, trying asking for a women's health specialist at the doctor. Yeah. Really knowing, like we mentioned, your symptoms and doing your research of the kind of support you want. And we also recommend, don't we, to let them do a full set of bloods and just see if you've got any other thyroid issues, vitamin deficiencies, because they can make symptoms worse too.
Interesting. Going back to the hormone specialist and the specialist doctors, you know, we've got some really great guests, haven't we, coming up on these episodes that are actually going to come in and talk to you a bit more about that clinical side of things.
Yes, yeah. So on that note, if you've got any questions that you would like to ask the specialist and you haven't been able to, then please get in touch with us, email us at podcast@hormonesontheblink.com. But if we're kind of closing up with today, what do you think is the key that we wanted people to take away with them?
Research and track your symptoms. Keep a diary, open that court case, get in that doctor's surgery, and take charge of your body.